I suddenly had an idea. I never saw painting courses where people are painting the night realistically. So I'm not talking illustrations, I'm not talking from imagination, I'm not talking comics, I'm talking realist classical painting done from the real landscape at night. Why? No one is doing it. So I went online and I searched, and I could not find one single Plein-Air course that was realism, that was really trying to paint the night. So what I did is, with the art school Utopia, we are very utopic. With the art school Utopia, we created a workshop for advanced artists. Beginners cannot paint the night, forget it. It's too subtle. We would start just before sunset to sketch the shapes. So while you still have enough vision, you structure all the shapes. And then we wait for the fall of the night to try to match the exact colors we saw. The results, I must say, were hit and miss. But painting the night is challenging indeed. And finally, we are arriving to what brought me here, to Nepal. The PlatiGleam paintings, the ones you can see in the other rooms, in the exhibition. This is the Batalha Monastery. It's a very important monument because it represents the independence of the country. If for some reason a certain king or queen dies without leaving a heir to the throne, that means immediately an evil cousin will try to claim the power, right? And that's exactly what happened in Portugal. One of the dynasties was gone, and Spain tried to invade. There was no Spain back then. Portugal is actually older than Spain as a country. It's 1,000 years old. Italy was not a country. Italy was many, many different kingdoms. It was only unified in the 19th century. Greece as well only appears in the 19th century. Yes, you had ancient Greece, but that's not Greece as the country. We also had ancient Portugal, but it's not Portugal. It was the barbarians. You understand what I mean? So as a nation, as an independent nation, we are roughly 1,000 years old. And when the Spanish army was defeated, the Portuguese king promised a monastery to the Virgin Mary. According to the legend, he was blindfolded, he was spinned around a few times on top of a hill, and the legend says that he shot the arrow, and the arrow fell in the middle of a river. So according to the legend, the whole monastery was built on top of water. Now, I believe this to be a legend. They made scans on the grounds. Those claims are a bit unfounded, that's what I'm trying to say. It's probably just another medieval story, but it's a beautiful story. So you can see the style of the architecture. It's flaming Gothic, flaming because it resembles flames. It's almost like fire. It's very decorated, it's very ornate. An aerial view with the gardens with the cross of Christ. You can see the beautiful play of colors that stained glass creates. I love medieval architecture. I think it's amazing. Some of the chapels, how ornate they are. Underneath, that's where you have the grave of the king, together with the English princess that married the king. Portugal and England, they strike a political allegiance that lasts until nowadays. It's the oldest allegiance in the world that is still active. We've been allies for the last 700 years. These are the cloisters of the monastery. You can see the beauty of the stonework. I was invited by the director of the Batalha Monastery, Dr. Joaquim Ruivo, a man that I'm very proud of. Even the president of Romania gave him the highest award of merit. It's amazing, you know. This man has got a vision. I was mind blown, especially by these chapels, where you can see the sky. You totally see the sacred geometry. This is something else that disappeared. In contemporary art, there is only personal taste. It's totally subjective. But in ancient times, the art of painting, the art of architecture, they were like the art of music. Music nowadays carries on being still mathematical. Music is mathematics, actually. It's pure mathematics, from rhythm to frequencies and pitch, and what sounds go well with what, they're mathematically predetermined. So the art of music still keeps this very ancient, medieval way of thinking, of sacred numbers. This whole tradition of numbers being sacred, numbers being magical, if you prefer, it's ancient Greek, of course. Pythagoras was a very important philosopher, mathematician, and the whole Pythagorean school was about the power of numbers, and numbers explain the universe. What do you think is physics? Physics is just a branch of mathematics. Most scientific revolutions made nowadays are being done by mathematicians. Not anymore by people with white coats working inside labs. That's a very old-fashioned way of doing science. I mean, it's still important. We still need testing and experimentation. But the biggest revolutions nowadays are being done by mathematicians. And they're discovering the laws of the universe by using purely thought and reasoning and logic and mathematics. Plato, the great philosopher, although I prefer Socrates, just between you and me. I much prefer Socrates. He's my favorite philosopher. But Plato was the disciple of Socrates. He talked about the perfection of the real reality. He said that this reality is just an illusion. He stole the idea maybe from Socrates. Who has read the Allegory of the Cave? Oh, highly recommend it. Allegory of the Cave by Socrates, but written by Plato. Because Socrates never wrote anything. He was like Jesus Christ, or maybe Buddha. It was other people that wrote the things he said. Okay? So when Socrates died, Plato started writing as quickly as he could, before he would forget. He started writing the dialogues. And the dialogues were conversations that Plato heard his master Socrates having with other people. Those dialogues were put into text. And one of the amazing books that Plato wrote is called The Republic. It's a major book of ancient Greek philosophy. The Allegory of the Cave is spectacular. I will not bore you now with the text. You can read it in maybe 15 minutes. So please, this should be your homework. When we finish this lecture, this talk, please read the Allegory of the Cave. It might change the way you look at reality. It's one of the most important texts in the whole history of Greek philosophy. All right? But you see sacred geometry. So in the past, the arts were based on mathematics. They were based on geometry. They were based on magical proportions, symbolic relationships. Numbers had magical, mythical power. And of course, every civilization would have their own numbers. In the West, the number 7 represents perfection. The number 3 represents God. Because in Christianity, God is 3, but 1. 1, but 3 manifestations. A bit like water, steam, or ice.